Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're cracking open a really fascinating collection that you, our listener, brought to our attention. It's called The Naughty Bits, the Steamiest and Most Scandalous Sex Scenes from the World's Great Books, edited by Jack Murnighan.
Right.
And our mission really is to get into the skin of these excerpts, see what they tell us about literature, maybe about ourselves, even about reading itself.
And it's quite a mix, isn't it? You mentioned the sources range from, well, things like the Kama Sutra and the Old Testament.
Ancient stuff.
All the way to contemporary books like Toni Morrison's Beloved or Nicholson Baker's Vox. It's a broad sweep.
Definitely. What's interesting right off the bat is Murnighan's own take on it all.
Yeah, he has this idea that really effective writing about sex, it might actually be sort of self-defeating.
How so?
Well, his thinking is if it's too good, too evocative, the reader might just, close the book and go look for the real thing, as he puts it.
Huh. Right. And he points to Dante, doesn't he? His favorite example.
Exactly. Paolo and Francesca in the Inferno. They're reading this romance about Lancelot, and they get swept up, they kiss, and bam, the book just falls to the floor.
And Murnighan kind of hopes this collection might do the same to the reader. It's a provocative thought, isn't it?
It really is, and it kind of begs the question, what's the point of these scenes in literature anyway? Is it just titillation?
Or something deeper? I mean, literature uses intense experiences all the time to explore what it means to be human, right?
Precisely. So that's what we're going to do in this deep dive. We'll explore how sex gets portrayed across different times, different cultures.
Always looking for those surprising bits, those memorable details, just for you, the learner.
Okay.
So where should we start? Maybe with the sheer physicality, the sensation.
Good idea. And D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover is a powerful place to begin. The excerpt here is, well, it's intensely physical.
Visceral, almost.
Yeah, visceral. It uses language like rippling inside her, rippling, 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 like a flapping overlapping of soft flames. It really tries to capture that internal sensation.
And it really focuses on the female experience, that feeling, that longing for connection, which was pretty radical for its time.
Absolutely. He was deliberately trying to be authentic about female sexuality, pushing back against repression. You almost feel those bells rippling up, as he writes.
Yeah, it's like that synesthesia thing, describing one sense with another, feeling sounds. Now let's jump to something completely different. Kurt Vonnegut, Breakfast of Champions.
Ah, yes. Talk about contrast.
Totally. The language here is, well, it's blunt.
Yeah.
Explicit. Crude, even. We get some very direct phrasing for sexual acts.
It is crude, and that contrast is stark, isn't it? It really shows the massive difference in authorial approach. Lawrence is aiming for this deep, sensual immersion.
Right.
While Vonnegut feels almost confrontational with his explicitness.
Yeah, like he's maybe trying to de-romanticize it. Or just shock you. What do you think?
Could be either or both. It certainly strips away any sense of poetic beauty you find in Lawrence. It forces you to confront the raw mechanics, maybe.
It definitely makes you stop and think about the author's intent.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, what about Julio Cortázar's Hopscotch? His focus is different again.
Yes, Cortázar really zeroes in on touch. He calls it the most trustworthy sense, especially in sex.
How does he put it? Something about grammar.
Yeah, hearing through contact the syllables of joint and sinew, learning through movement the grammar of friction.
Wow.
It's this idea that touch offers a kind of truth, a deep communication that maybe sight or sound can't quite capture in that context. He trusts that tactile language.
That's a beautiful way of thinking about it, that connection beyond words or looks. Okay, let's move into desire and temptation. There's this playful medieval piece, One Thing, Baudouin.
Right, the debate, kiss on the mouth or the feet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is the proper way to greet your lover.
And the arguments are interesting. One side says the mouth shows direct, joyful desire. The other argues for kissing the feet as a sign of humility, maybe even a bit of strategy to win affection.
It shows how even that first greeting can be loaded with intent, doesn't it? Little performance.
Definitely. Now, speaking of loaded situations, Shakespeare's The Rape of Lucrece. Murnighan raises a really complex point here.
He does, because the poem condemns the act, obviously, but...
But as Murnighan notes, the actual rape is somewhat downplayed in the description. What Shakespeare really focuses on is the lead-up.
Right, the anticipation. Lucrece's beauty, Tarquin's lust, his internal struggle, their whole debate. The tension just builds and builds.
It's all about that suspense, and this leads Murnighan to that tricky ethical question.
Does showing this stuff, even the build-up, encourage it? Or does fiction give us a safe way to explore these dark impulses?
It's a tough one. No easy answers. It really makes you consider the power and responsibility of storytelling. How do you navigate that as a reader, you know?
It does give you pause. Okay, let's shift again. Thinking about sex within different social or cultural settings, we have Le Mort d'Arthur.
Right, King Arthur and the Knights, not usually the first thing you think of for steamy scenes.
Exactly. You think battles, chivalry.
But Mallory includes these moments. The real sex, as Murnighan calls it, often happens in the pavilions, the tents, during campaigns.
And the funny part is the mistaken identity thing.
Yeah. Knights wandering into the wrong tent, falling for the wrong person because of it. It adds this layer of, well, almost farce sometimes amidst all the heroic stuff. It definitely complicates the simple image of chivalry.
Gives it a bit more human messiness. Then there's a quick but interesting bit from Moby Dick.
Ah, the mincer and the whale pelt.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Murnighan points out the, let's say, unexpected homoerotic undertones. He calls the mincer slipping into the pelt a canonical investiture.
Like being formally robed, but with whaleskin.
Exactly. It's this strangely intimate, engulfing moment in this hyper-masculine world of whaling. A subtle hint at different kinds of connection, perhaps.
Interesting. Okay, and then the Arabian Nights. The power of storytelling itself comes up here.
Very much so. The tales are used strategically, sometimes to encourage unconventional sexual acts, and Burton's translation aimed at Victorians.
Right.
It reveals a whole different set of cultural norms around sex compared to 19th century England. Storytelling becomes a vehicle to explore, maybe even normalize, a wider range of experiences within that context.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, let's pivot to sexuality and identity. John Cheever's Falconer, set in a prison.
Yeah, and Murnighan contrasts Cheever's sort of gentler style with someone like Jean Genet, who's much more explicit about prison sexuality.
And the excerpt focuses on a character, Cuckold.
Right. Cuckold recounts his first homosexual experience. There's this initial resistance, maybe shock, but then this poignant acceptance.
It feels very human, very real, especially finding that self-discovery in such a repressed environment.
Cheever handles it with a certain tenderness, despite the setting. Now, contrast that with James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room. That's a much more painful exploration.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The protagonist has this first kiss with a boy, realizes his homosexuality.
Yeah, and is just consumed by shame, tries desperately to suppress it, to hide it. Murnighan really emphasizes that anguish of living inauthentically, the internal conflict when your identity clashes with what society expects or what you've internalized yourself.
It's heartbreaking, that struggle. Makes you think about those societal pressures.
Definitely. And then, for something completely different under this theme, Lydia Davis's This Condition.
Ah, the list.
The list. It's this wonderfully expansive, unconventional catalog of things that can spark desire.
And it goes way beyond people, right?
Oh, yeah. Animals, vegetables, fruits, objects, weather. It really challenges you to think about what attraction even is, how wide-ranging it can be.
I remember reading that and thinking, a carrot? Really?
Yeah.
But it makes you reconsider.
Exactly. It broadens the whole concept. Okay, ready for some humor and absurdity?
Please, let's lighten things up. Jeanette Winterson's Sexing the Cherry. The Dog Woman.
Larger than life is an understatement. The writing is described as Rabelaisian, that earthy, exaggerated bodily humor.
And the scene involves a man who is just completely inadequate for her sheer physicality.
Utterly fails to satisfy her. It's played for broad comedy, using that exaggeration to poke fun at inadequacy, almost slapstick.
You can picture it. Then, Vox by Nicholson Baker. A very different kind of scenario.
Very different and very modern in a way. It's basically just phone sex.
Right. The whole novel is a phone call. And this scene involves simultaneous masturbation while watching porn, but they never physically meet.
Exactly. It's intimacy mediated entirely by technology. But Baker makes it feel incredibly intimate and erotic through the detailed descriptions of their shared imaginative experience.
Really speaks to the power of imagination and fantasy, even at a distance.
It does. And then, for a different kind of humor, Tom Wolfe's A Man in Full, The Horses.
Ah, yes, the horse mating scene.
Wolfe gives this very detailed, almost documentary-style account, very matter-of-fact.
Including some unexpected biological details.
Like the mare urinating on the stallion. It's funny because it's so unromantic, so biological, it strips away any lofty ideas.
Definitely demystifies the barnyard romance. Okay, moving into more complex territory, power and vulnerability. Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow.
Right. The excerpt here depicts a sadomasochistic encounter.
It's pretty intense.
It is. It delves into power dynamics, but also presents pain almost as a form of truth, a way to cut through illusion. The character seems to find a strange reality, even purity, in submission and pain.
It's unsettling for sure. Really complicates ideas about desire and authenticity.
Very much so. And then bringing up perhaps the most difficult ethical questions, we have the Marquis de Sade's Justine.
Yeah, City is synonymous with exploring taboo themes, often involving sexual violence and domination.
And Murnighan acknowledges the debate around this. Does depicting such things glorify them? The excerpt forces us to confront that difficult relationship between literature, freedom of expression, and potentially harmful themes.
It's a line literature often walks, isn't it? Exploring the dark side without endorsing it. Okay, let's touch on some of the more, maybe unexpected perspectives in the collection, starting way back with Hesiod's Theogony.
Ancient Greek myths. And Hesiod. Well, he wasn't exactly a feminist, was he?
No. Murnighan notes his pretty negative views on women, but also the surprising link between these divine power struggles and early Oedipal themes.
Yeah, it shows how deep-rooted some of these psychological complexes are in our foundational stories. Power, family, desire. It's all there from the beginning.
A reminder of how long these issues have been around. Then Catullus, the Roman poet. Much less divine.
Definitely not. Catullus is raw, blunt, often crude. He uses really direct, insulting language, often sensual, against rivals.
It's a very unromanticized view of ancient sexuality, isn't it? Anger and jealousy expressed through sexual insults.
Very much so. A far cry from idealized love poems. Now, moving forward quite a bit, Pietro Aretino's voluptuous sonnets from the 16th century.
These sound like quite something.
They are. Joyful, playful dialogues between lovers, very explicit about acts and body parts. Murnighan calls it an early landmark of printed erotica in Europe.
So a real shift towards openness, at least in print.
A definite step. Humorous and unashamedly physical. Then there's a modern short story, Kevin Canty's Pretty Judy, focuses on a teenage boy.
And it challenges stereotypes, right?
Exactly. Instead of just hormones, the protagonist feels this complex mix. Desire, yes, but also shame, guilt, confusion. It's a much more nuanced picture of adolescent male sexuality than we often get.
It feels more realistic, honestly.
Yeah.
It's rarely simple. Okay, back to ancient texts. The Old Testament.
Murnighan points out it's surprisingly full of sexual stories, and not always wholesome ones.
Like Lot and his daughters.
Right, among others. It doesn't sanitize human behavior. And then, of course, there's the Song of Solomon.
Which is basically straight-up erotic poetry within the Bible.
Explicitly sensual. And the contrast with the New Testament's general approach to sexuality is pretty stark.
It really is. The interpretations of Song of Solomon alone could fill libraries. We also circle back to Aretino's sonnets again briefly.
Yes, highlighting a reader's quote about wanting a sweet-ass fuck.
Wow, okay.
Murnighan includes it, I think, to show the range and explicitness he's compiling, not shying away from the direct, even crude language found in literature across the ages.
Leaves nothing to the imagination there. Okay, now for a really unexpected source. The Starr Report.
Seems weird, right? A congressional investigation.
Totally.
But Murnighan frames it provocatively as a kind of love story. A deeply messed up one, obviously.
Right.
He focuses on how President Clinton's actions dehumanized Monica Lewinsky and how the power imbalance was just overwhelming. Even the dry language of the report reveals those very human, very uncomfortable dynamics.
That's a chilling way to look at it. Power dynamics laid bare. Okay, next, a work just called Hell.
This one's about voyeurism. The protagonist watches others through a crack in the wall.
So observing sexual encounters.
Yes, but it's broader than that. He observes their whole lives, their relationships, their isolation. And this act of watching leads him into these deep philosophical thoughts about connection, disconnection, mortality. The sex is part of the human condition he's observing.
Interesting. The watcher turning inward. Then there's an excerpt related to Alain Delille's plaintive nature. This one sounds odd.
It's bizarre. Alain tries to condemn homosexuality by comparing it to grammatical errors.
Like mixing up subjects and objects.
Exactly. It's a really strange analogy. Shows the lengths people went to historically to try and pathologize same-sex desire using whatever intellectual framework they had, however ill-fitting.
Definitely creative, if misguided.
Man.
Okay, Henry Miller's Sexiest.
Miller gives us this really intimate scene. A wife, feeling conflicted, masturbating next to her sleeping husband.
Oh.
It digs into unspoken desire, dissatisfaction within marriage, the complex inner life hidden beneath the surface.
You ever
Private.
use those hidden tensions. Then J.G. Ballard's Crash, known for being provocative.
Very. Ballard describes sex happening amidst the wreckage of car crashes, and the tone is weirdly detached, clinical almost.
Blurring lines between sex, violence, technology.
All of the above. It's disturbing, makes you think about how trauma and our technological world might intersect with desire in really unsettling ways.
Almost sterile, questioning connection itself. Okay, Chaucer, the wife of Bath's prologue.
Ah, the wife of Bath, a force of nature.
Definitely. She's completely unapologetic about her own desires, her experiences with multiple husbands.
She really challenges the norms for women's sexuality in her time. So outspoken, so full of life.
Refreshing, especially for medieval lit. Then, Guillaume X, an early troubadour, Lucky Pierre.
Right, one of the first troubadours. And his lyrics were pretty direct. He apparently focused on the laws of pussy.
Huh. So early courtly love wasn't all idealized romance.
Not his version, more focused on the physical, quite ribald.
Quite the character. Okay, Catherine Breillat's a man for the asking. What's the angle here?
An interesting psychological observation. The protagonist's desire apparently weakens when their fear disappears.
Huh. So fear and desire are linked.
It suggests maybe risk or the unknown is part of the spark for this character. Makes you wonder about the psychology behind attraction.
How much is tied to the forbidden? Maybe. Okay, now for a very dark one. Cormac McCarthy's Child of God.
Yeah, this deals with necrophilia. Extremely disturbing territory.
Unsettling, to say the least.
It forces confrontation with the absolute fringes of human urges, the most profound taboos. Raises incredibly difficult questions about where such impulses come from.
Challenges the reader in a profound way. Then an excerpt from Elena.
This one shows the narrator using manipulation to get sex. It highlights that transactional aspect that can, unfortunately, creep into desire-driven interactions.
A pretty cynical view of relationships, then, using power for gratification.
Seems so. And speaking of power, Keith Banner's The Life I Lead. There's a disturbing line in there.
What's that?
The narrator observes he can do whatever I want to a young boy. The implication is deeply unsettling, raising red flags about power imbalance and potential abuse.
Very troubling. Okay, back to Aretino. Dialogue between two lovers.
More explicit, humorous chat. Sexual positions, desires.
Practical advice, too.
Yeah, like the husband telling the wife to always keep her ring on. It's that mix of frank sexuality and almost mundane detail that marks his style.
A very earthy approach to intimacy.
Yeah.
Then, Fanny Hill by John Cleland.
Classic early English erotica. Notable for its detailed descriptions of male anatomy, but from a female point of view.
Which was unusual for the time, giving that female gaze.
Exactly. Challenge norms. And then something even older, Old English riddles.
Riddles. How do they fit in?
Many of them are full of double entendres. They describe everyday objects, keys, churns, onions, in ways that are clearly suggestive, hinting at sexual meanings.
Clever. Hiding it in plain sight.
Yeah, playing with language and desire. Then there's Ovid's The Art of Love.
The original dating guide.
Sort of. It's instructional, offering advice on seduction, lovemaking, gives great insight into Roman social customs around relationships.
Fascinating. And finally, Jungmann's additions to The Romance of the Rose.
Right. The original was an allegory, but Jean de Meun added sections with really explicit talk about, male genitalia.
Caused a stir, did it?
Oh yeah, big controversy. Shows how authors could push boundaries even within established literary forms, shocking their contemporaries.
A medieval provocateur.
Okay, wow. We have covered a lot of ground. A truly wild ride through literary naughtiness.
We really have. From ancient Greece to modern lit, the sheer diversity in how sex is shown is incredible. It reflects so much about changing cultures and artistic aims. And hopefully you, our listener, has seen how literature uses sex to be, well, titillating sometimes, sure, but also thought-provoking, funny, disturbing, exploring all facets of desire and connection.
Which loops us back to Murnighan's opening idea. After hearing about all this, do you feel like closing the book, so to speak?
Or does reading about it offer its own kind of satisfaction? A deeper understanding, maybe?
Perhaps engaging with these intimate moments through literature is its own unique way to connect, to explore the complexities of being human.
So, what stands out to you now, after this deep dive into the naughty bits? What's the thing that lingers? Maybe you'll even go back and read some of these excerpts or whole books with a new eye.
Worth considering.
Absolutely. Well, until our next deep dive, keep exploring the fascinating world around you.